For Pythagorean theorem, guys, pay attention, please. So there are two things that you need to know in Pythagorean theorem. So basically what the theorem is that when I have a right angle triangle, so say like this guy over here, these two squares, or the area of these two squares that are made up by the smaller sides, give you the area of the big square, which is along the hypotenuse. So this is a squared, b squared, and c squared. The reason why they have the exponent of 2 is because how do we usually measure area? Centimeters what? Squared. Okay, so that's why you have the exponent of 2. So what the Pythagorean theorem is saying is that the area of the first square, which is a squared, plus the area in the second square, which is b squared, gives you the area of the biggest side, which is just c squared. So c will always be your hypotenuse, and a and b can be interchangeable. And what I mean by that is that a can either be here or here. So in reality, this should say b/a and b/a, because a and b you can just switch however you want. C will always be your hypotenuse, which is the slanted height. And like I said, this only works with a right angle triangle. And if you think about this right angle and you like make it into an arrow, it always points towards the hypotenuse. Okay? So this right angle, if you turn it into an arrow, it points directly into your hypotenuse. Yeah.
So all squares.
So the two smaller squares make the big square. So if you're finding,
Well, hold on. Is it c bigger than like c squared? Isn't it bigger than like a and like a or b?
yeah, and what I'm saying with the Pythagorean theorem is if you add the area of the squares from a and b, it gives you the area of c. So there's two ways. So if you're finding c, you're going to use a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So that's if you're finding c, you're going to use a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Now, if you're going to find a or b, doesn't really matter because a and b, you can switch it however you want. Does not really matter where a or b goes. So now the next one, let's say if you're finding a. If you're finding a or b. So now what you're going to do is if you're finding a or b, you're going to use a squared is equal to c squared minus b squared. All you're doing is just rearranging the original formula and isolating for either a or b. Yeah.
Percent for b squared equals c squared minus b. Oh, a squared.
Yeah.
So you can see, could you zoom in on finding a and b?
So we have example A. So we have two given sides and one missing side. So which one are we going to be using? Yazin.
Your final C, you're doing A.
Yep.
A squared plus A squared equals C squared.
Yep. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. So obviously, which one is C? C is X. Okay. Austin, which one do you want A or B to be?
A can be 6 meters.
Okay.
B can be 8 meters.
Perfect. So like I said, A and B can be interchangeable. If you want B to be 6, that's fine, and A to be 8, that's cool, but does not really matter, to be completely honest. So we have 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to C squared. What's 6 to the power of 2?
36.
36. 8 to the power of 2? 64. And when you add those two together, what do you get? 100. So because C squared is not by itself because it has the squared on top of it, how would you get rid of it? You do the square root. And what's the square root of? This technically should be X. That's my bad.
Wait. What do you have to do after you get 36 plus 6 to get 100?
You add them together.
Well,
36.
sure, I know you add it together, but you get 100 and then.
So because you have this squared up here, Kareem, you have to do the opposite of squaring, which is finding the square root. So the square root of 100 is 10. So your hypotenuse is 10. So you'll know something is wrong is when you're finding the hypotenuse and it's smaller than either A or B, then you mess something up. So your hypotenuse always has to be the biggest number. Yeah. Because 10 is bigger than 8 and 10 is bigger than 6, then you're probably right. If you magically somehow got like 7, then it's not possible. Because your hypotenuse always has to be the biggest side. Yeah. Oh, you want me to spell it? Hype, ot, and use.
No, you spelled it wrong. Okay. You for sure spelled it wrong.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't do a 36 and 64 by doing like
Squared. Yep. Oh, they spelled it wrong.
Yeah, it's so you can.
Hypotenuse. Oh,
Oh.
hypotenuse.
Wait, is it wrong?
Yeah, there's not. There's after the N is just a USE. There's no E. Okay, so example B. What sides do I have? Label the triangle, Kareem.
So C is gonna be the 24 meters.
Yep.
B can be 10 meters.
Okay.
And then X can be like,
Perfect.
and then geometry.
Yeah. So what would we use to solve for A?
C squared plus B equals.
A
Wait,
squared.
you solve
C squared.
Oh, minus. Sorry.
Yep. So A squared. Continue.
A squared equals C squared minus B squared.
So I know A is X, so I'm gonna have X squared. C is 24, and B is 10. So what's 24 squared? Is it 596? 576 or 596?
I should do the work.
576? And we know 10 squared is 100. So what's 576 minus 100? Austin.
476.
Okay, and what's my last step?
Square root.
Square root. Yeah, 21.8. Okay. So I'll tell you what decimal to round it to. Usually it'll be the 10th. And Claire, to answer your question, we have our original Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So if I want to isolate for a squared, what do I have to move over? The b squared. So I have to move b squared over, and because it's positive on the left side, it's going to become c squared minus b squared.
I did that question wrong. I was close. Actually, I almost got the right answer.
What number do you square root 476 by?
Square root is just a square root.
Square root is basically saying like, is there enough squares?
So a square root is finding a number that when you multiply it by itself gives you 476. So which is why the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25.
Isn't it also like what we call a square?
Yep.
Where it's like 100 being 10 by 10.
Yep. Perfect squares have no
Yeah,
decimals.
that's 26 of them. So.
So are we good so far with this one?
I'm just gonna tell it
No,
on this question.
no, wait.
Okay.
Can you not move on?
I'm not moving on
I
yet.
still want to talk.
Now, this one's a bit different, but okay.
Can I try?
Sure.
Wait, wants to-
So the next one is going to be a bit different. Can someone tell me why it's going to be different? Because we have the squares, right? So can someone tell me how they're going to do this one? Laura?
Oh, what? Oh, we just do 42 minus 19, which we just add.
Why do we not square 42 and 19?
Because it's already squared.
So because we have the areas, they have already been squared. Okay, so that's why you don't have to do 42 squared and 19 squared. You can just subtract them by each other. So which one's A, which one's B, and which one's C? Austin, you did this one. What's A, what's B, and what's C?
A is x, b is 19, b is 42.
Perfect. So I'm going to have A squared is equal to C squared minus B squared. So x squared is just going to be x squared. So C is 42 because it's already squared. So C squared is 42. And because 19 is already squared, B squared is 19. So what's 42 minus 19? 23, which means the area of X is going to be 23 kilometers squared. If I want to find what the side measures, what do I have to do with that answer? Yeah. So what I just found right now is that the area of X is 23 kilometers squared. If I want to find what the side measures, like Laura said, I have to take the square root. So I'm going to write over here, area of X is 23 kilometers squared. If I want to find what each side measures, I have to take the square root. So what's the square root of 23? Use a calculator. Austin?
4.79.
So 4.8. So when I square root it, it means that each side is 4.8 kilometers. First word problem. So the first word problem we have is, guys, pay attention, please. So we have, rather than walk all the way around Farmer Fred's 1,500-meter by 2-kilometer rectangular field, Olaf, you know, the guy from Frozen, he cuts it from corner to corner, but I'm pretty sure he would melt because he's a snowman. Okay. How much shorter was his trip than if he had walked all the way around? Yeah. Grammatically, that's correct, I think. So when we have a field, it says we have a rectangular field. So we have one side is 2 kilometers. The other side is 1,500 meters. What's the problem with 1,500 meters? It's not kilometers. Yep. It's not in km. So how do we convert 1,500 meters into kilometers? Maya. Yeah. So there's 1,000 meters for every kilometer. So we need to take 1,500 and divide it by 1,000. So Matthew, what's 1,500 divided by 1,000? So I have 1.5 kilometers. So what it's asking here is, if he walked across the field diagonally, how much shorter of a walk was it? So we have to solve for x. So what part of the triangle is x?
Middle.
Uh,
Short cross.
C.
C. So
Ooh,
x is
ooh.
C. What's A and what's B?
1.5 kilometers is 8.
Okay.
And 2 kilometers, I know I can read. That 2 kilometers is B squared.
Not even read. Doesn't even know.
So we're solving for C. So I know that C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. So x squared is equal to A squared, which is 1.5 squared, plus B squared, which is 2 to the power of 2. So what's 1.5 to the power of 2? 2.25. And 2 to the power of 2 is what? 4. Thank you, Dave.
No,
So Sean, when you add those two together, what do you get?
you get 6.25.
Thank you. And now, because we have to get rid of the squared, we have to take the square root. So what's the square root of 6.25? 2.5? So x is equal to 2.5 kilometers. So are we done yet, or is there something more to the question?
There's something more.
What is it, Kareem?
You have to convert. Wait, did we already do this?
You already did this.
Okay. Then can I have another guess?
Sure. One more guess, and then passing on the baton.
Alright, basically, statement.
No, Laura.
Come on.
Because it's asking how much shorter it is than walking all the way
Yep.
around, so then you have to do 2.5, like deduct that from the perimeter of the thing.
Mm-hmm. So if he has to walk all the way around the farm, okay, not all the way around, but if he starts here and wants to end up here and he walks all the way around, how much is his trip? So if he starts here and he goes up and then across and ends up over here, how long was his trip? Gian. Yep. So it'd be 1.5 kilometers plus 2 kilometers, which is equal to 3.5 kilometers.
Should we say it's 1 kilometer by going across?
Yep. So now the difference would be, we're going to take what we have around and subtract it from what he did across. So 3.5 minus 2.5 is just 1. So now, Kareem, what's our therefore statement?
It will take him, is that 1 kilometer?
Yep.
Yeah, it would take him 1 kilometer to We're talking about how like distance diagonally, right?
You're missing a word after 1 kilometer.
Okay.
It's a
It
straight
would
line.
take him 1 kilometer squared.
Nope.
Okay, hold on. 1 kilometer. Please.
Okay, one last guess. One last guess.
Extra.
No.
Hey,
My-
come on, Jill.
Shh. You're here.
It was 1 kilometer shorter than linear.
Therefore, his trip
How'd you not get that?
is 1 kilometer shorter
Boom, come on, Kareem, I'm-
Yeah, nice drive by Claire.
than going all the way around. Okay.
Mr. Garcia, can you zoom in?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the last question is a right angle triangle. So now I have to draw a diagram. So I have my right angle triangle. It has a base of 1,000 centimeters and an area of 60 meters squared. The base is the bottom. I want to determine the perimeter of the triangle. So my area is in meters squared, but my base is in centimeters. What do I have to do with that first?
Divide the centimeters by 100.
Yep. So there is 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So I'm going to take my 1,000 centimeters and divide it by 100. So how many meters does that give me? 10? So my base is 10 meters. This is going to be a pretty long question. What other piece of information do we have in this question? Kareem?
And an area of 60 meters squared. Is that
Perfect.
squared?
Yep. So we know that the area is equal to 60 meters squared. So in order to determine the perimeter, I need every single side of that triangle. Okay? So how many sides do we need to find? 2 more. What side can we find using the area of the triangle? Maya. The height. So what's the area of a triangle, Gian? Sure. But before you go, what's the area of a triangle? What's the area of a triangle before you go? Area of the triangle. What is the area? I just want you to tell me the formula. Don't actually solve it. Yeah. So area is equal to base times the height divided by 2. So we have our area, which is 60. We have our base, which is 10. We don't have our height, and that's divided by 2. So I need to isolate for height. So how do I get rid of this annoying 2 in the denominator? Kareem? I'm going to hear you up. No, because we're already dividing by 2. How do I get rid of the division?
Yeah.
We're going to multiply both sides by 2. So I'm going to get 2 times 60 If I multiply this by 2, it gets rid of my denominator.
20
Is equal to 10h.
not 20H.
So what's 2 times 60? And to leave h by itself, what do I have to do?
I know.
What?
Five.
By
Oh,
10.
by 10. So what is the height of my triangle? Thank you, Matthew. It's going to be 12 meters. So my height is 12 meters. What's the last thing I need to find?
C.
The c, right? So Matthew, c is x. Okay, what's a and what's b? Austin.
A could be 10 and B could be 12.
Perfect. So because we have to find c, we're going to use c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So we know c is x, so x squared is equal to 10 squared plus 12 squared. What's 10 to the power of 2? What's 12 to the power of 2? Thank you. So when I add those two together, I get 244. And how do I get rid of the squared?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Square root.
Oh,
So what's the square root of 244? Austin.
3.4.
Pardon?
15.6, or would it be?
it's 15.62.
15.62. It says 2 decimals, so we're good. So now we have our hypotenuse, which is 15.62 meters. So now, how do I find the perimeter? You add everything together, Matthew. Thank you. So perimeter is equal to 12 plus 10. Thank you.
6.2.
So Kareem, what's my therefore statement?
Oh, me?
Yep.
The perimeter of the triangle is 37 plus 62 meters.
Good job. Therefore, the perimeter is 37.62 meters.
Is that 15? That's 15.
Yeah, 15.62. I'll write it better.